Hello, welcome back to another artifacts video. This time I'm going to be looking at track mattes. So, track mattes are a way of obscuring some of the information behind the clip. So if we take a look at what we've got here, I've got basically this box here, and then behind that we've got this video clip. So let's look at what using a track matte will do. Now the first thing you need to mention is that the track matte will always go on top of the movie. So let's try using a Luma Matte here and see what happens. And you'll see it's cut out everything, and it's cut out this section that was white, right? So what that means is you could say that Luma is for white, and we'll look at it in a minute with the alpha channel, that's more for black, right? So that's all it's done. It's cut it down. And also notice that you can no longer see this layer here. It removes the visibility of this layer. So that is what you could say a track matte does, a Luma matte. Similarly, if we did the Luma inverted, see it does the opposite. We can see everything but the stuff that was white. Okay, let's go back to 0. Now what I want to do is we're going to put a new text layer in. And we'll just type in here alpha to show this. We'll put that in the middle. And this is, in this situation, you want to use an alpha matte. So this will look at the black stuff and then just show everything behind it. All right, so we don't actually need this box anymore. So now we're going to do an alpha matte. And you'll see now the background is showing through the letters of the black text. And similarly, if I did alpha inverted, everything's showing except for the what is in the alpha channel there. At the moment, what I've got is you've got the mask of the sheep that I did, and I want to blend it here with the boat here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the different levels here. So what we're going to do is look at the different levels here. So there's the red channel, the green, and the blue. And we can say which one has got the best contrast. Essentially, we're going to need to make the blacks black and then the whites white. So what we could do is maybe make this mountain thing black and then the rest of it white. So should we try and do that? Let's see how we might go around doing that. So go to Effects. We'll start by doing calculations on it. And I think this is the blue channel, so we'll do blue channel. All right, now we need to put on levels. Put the levels on here. And at the moment, you can see we're only sort of zoomed into this area of it. So, because the sheep clip is much smaller, basically. So let's have a look. So you can see how it looks essentially there. So the input of black, let's see how I want to do this. We want a lot of it to be white, basically. But then the black, so get that top bit black. So that might not be a bad example here, right? So we've got something like that. It's not exactly perfect. I just want it to be on the cusp there. So once we set that, what you'll see is if we do the Luma matte, you see it actually is going to be able to crop out a part of the mask, right? So we get a slightly different shape on the mask. We could do the other section as well. You can see that interesting thing with the mountains blocking off part of the mask. What I've got is I have a Illustrator document here, which has got an alpha channel. So we can take a look at the alpha channel here. And you can see that we have the alpha channel selected. So what it means is that you can then use an alpha matte to do some things with it. So what I've done is I've just resized it and made it go across the stage. So we'll get our background picture here. So I was going to use the grass I have, I think. Yep. So we'll put that one down here. And what we also want to do is we want to actually just copy and paste it below as well. Okay, so what I want to do first of all is I want to put this effect in here, the invert effect. So we'll put this on the higher level. You see that's what it does, right? And you can see it goes across. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to put the alpha matte on. And so that will have the invert effect. One of the interesting things about the invert effect as well is that you can do some pretty interesting effects. Like if you did this on, these ones are pretty cool, the quadrature luminance. Look at the effect you get with that one. And then here with the mode, add is obviously the most common mode you might want to use there. Gives you a pretty cool effect. Luminance also gives you a pretty cool effect. Depending on what you're going for, what sort of shapes. You can imagine if this was text. And this is the thing, like most stuff from like Illustrator's got an alpha channel, so you'll be able to do this sort of thing. And in general, it's just a pretty good like way to do it. You just have the video clip twice. The bottom video clip you leave completely blank. The second one you apply the alpha onto the alpha matte using this, and then you can just essentially just mess around with the modes, and then this invert channel. You also have this the option of doing this as well, which also can potentially yield some interesting results. Like this, if for instance, if the lines in the pencil weren't there, that would actually work pretty well. Because I think this idea of like getting more like detailed information, like the actual, it actually revealing more detailed information is pretty interesting. So we've kind of got a few clips. We've got the background, we've got the bumblebee on the flowers, and you can see you've got an alpha mask showing this, and the matte layer here is the landscape, which is the words. If we look at it in the layer, you can see what that looks like. There's the alpha channel there. Okay, so this is one way to do things, but there is a problem, which is that if we wanted to do something like this, you notice it's just moving the movie clip, and the text itself is not moving. We might want to do those at the same time, right? So one we can do to do that is with parenting. Now, parenting will affect the sort of first 4 things in the transform menu here, like anchor point, position, scale, and rotation. So it means that they'll move together, basically. And you could, so for instance, we could take this button here and drag it on here. So it says shift move layer to parent's location, and you can see some info in there. What it means basically now is if we try to move this around, we're now moving the whole lot, moving the clip and the matte as well. So we wanted to move the movie clip independently, but we still wanted it to move with the matte. What we could do is we could just put them both onto a null object layer. So let's have a look at that. So we'll put the null object at the top, and we'll connect these two. You could do it like this as well. It doesn't really matter. You can do it whichever way you want. So say we wanted to move the position keyframes, and we just wanted to move, and we'll do like a simple thing, which is just to like minus 200, and we'll just move somewhere, where were we, about 1400 maybe? Yeah, that'll do, right? So something like that. So there's what the null layer is doing, and you can see that it's all moving because the children of this null layer are both the matte and the movie. The good thing is though, is that we also have the ability to actually like move stuff around. So say we wanted like, I don't know, the text to be rotating or something like that. So we could then say, we could then go down here, and we could say, yeah, you know what, actually I also want the text to rotate a little bit as well. So we'll maybe just a little rotation here, like a 360 during its travels here. So you can see, now we can make it rotate as well. Another thing to realize about what is happening in general with the layers is the layers are rendered from the bottom up. And what happens is background will render, then the alpha track matte will render, then layer styles will render kind of at the end. So what it means, if we put a layer style on here, it would be after the track matte and after everything. So let's have a look at that. So we'll do a layer style, and we'll go for bevel and emboss. All right, so if we go to bevel and emboss, we're going to just change it up. We'll do depth. I like to do pillow emboss because that's a bit more impressive looking. No real reason, to be honest. So for instance, say we did like some wild one like that. You can do like a bunch of different settings, obviously, with this. And then let's take a look at the clip. So that is the order that you'd want to do that in, right? The other thing that you could do as well is you could also do some effects. You could also do an adjustment layer as well. You do have to be careful with the background because the adjustment, like I told you, it goes bottom up. So if you put an adjustment layer and you put a bunch of effects on the top, it will go bottom up and it will affect everything basically. But we could try putting one on anyway. And there is actually another bevel option that I happen to see, which is bevel alpha. Let's maybe put that on as well. You can see it's beveling the actual background. That is another thing that you could potentially do. So precomposing essentially is the opposite of nesting. So with nesting, what I would do here is I would only have two layers here, for instance, like the birch and the movie layer, and I would drag them into, I would drag the composition here into here, that would nest it, and then I would add my background, which is this water lilies here, onto that. So that would be nesting. The other way to do it though is to do precomposing. So precomposing, like I say, is the opposite. So it means that this is going to go, these two are going to be converted into one layer here, which is the main layer. And the advantage of precomposing is if I had a big project here, I'd be able to say I want to precompose these two, and then and there could be multiple other layers here. So it just makes this the sort of main project. So and just do the other stuff like in the background. So you can see, for instance, like if I did a layer precompose here, you see we're going to do these two. So it's going to be basically the movie and the matte, right? And we're going to go for move all attributes into the new composition, open new composition. Okay, so you can see now we have without the background here, right? So we can go back to our main composition and this is what we want it to look like, right? So here, for instance, I mean, I happen to already have done it, but here, for instance, is where you would do the things like the scaling and stuff like that. Remember the anchor point position, scale, and rotation. And then it leaves me with this option here now to do all the effects. So I may want to go even further into the hierarchy and actually say, well, actually, I want to precompose this. So one thing about this is I actually created the composition from this, so it is the size of this. So I actually scaled it down, as you can see here. The scale here is 82%, right? So I may want to actually precompose this. And if I go for this and go for leave all attributes in movie and matte, when we do a new composition, you'll notice that now, if we look at the scale, it's 100%. So that has only changed in this composition here. What it means, of course, is that if I then change the opacity, say 40 here, up to 100, that's then going to be reflected in the movie and the matte. Obviously, it's going to be 80% because that's what this is set to. Let me get that effect for the sort of final composition there. We're going to look at how to do transitions using essentially a shape from Illustrator. So here you can see I just put the alpha matte, the bumblebee underneath, and the stream of water is the background. So one of the things you want to do with these Illustrator alpha mattes is you see this button here for vector layer, which it is, continuously rasterize, right? So what it means is when you do scaling, especially about over 100%, means it's still going to look decent. So it's very important to do that on this thing. And then it's simply a case of just animating the alpha map. So this is a pretty useful thing to do, right? So we could do transform, and you could just choose like for instance, we could scale it from 0, and then by here it can be, fill the whole screen. And then we could also go for a rotation here of 0. And then we could do a bunch of, well, maybe not that many. Let's try 3. And what I want to do is just look at the stencil mode quickly. So this is currently the animation that's running. It's just doing that and reading this. And let's have a look, see what happens when we put stencil mode on top. So this is what this thing looks like. What I could do is I could just maybe do something like this. Just see what this looks like when we do a stencil mode. So that's kind of interesting. And what stencil mode essentially does is you'll notice with stencil mode you actually show, and unlike the track mats, you actually have to have the eye on. So you actually have to see the stencil mode. And you can see that can essentially alter a path. And this will alter everything below, right? So everything below will be affected by this. You can also turn on the, so you can see transparency grid underneath. If we did the effect constantly ahead of it, we could have like half the wave there, and the wave is constantly catching up. But we're going to need to do something with the stencil, right? Kind of readable though. Kind of readable. I actually like that. And you can see a little bit of the wave effect on it. Not much. Not much. But yeah. But stencils though, yeah, stencils are pretty cool. You can see how it's filling in that. This button here, which is preserve underlying transparency. So that's a pretty convenient way to get the underlying transparency. Another thing you can do as well is something that I did previously. It was if you did a solid layer and just did a mask. You see, you can get it to work something like that. It's a pretty cool way to do like certain effects through text and the background. You can then take also a look at the stencil modes as well. Stencil alpha. See, it's going to do something like that. Silhouette, as you can see here, is an inversion of a stencil. So how do I actually get this on a background, right? That is the question. All you have to do really is just nest it. So yeah, we kind of just have to nest this comp, which is this guy. And then you can put a background on. Funnily enough, you probably would need blending modes for something like this, just to get the contrast better.